Recording in progress. Great. I think this is probably going to be everyone. I don't think anyone else is going to join us, but if they do, I'll be happy. Yeah, the only new person that we have in this is Adina. She's joining us for the first time. So Adina, if you just want to do a quick little introduction, tell us your name, tell us where you're dialing in from, and well, we don't know each other personally, but we know each other through a mutual, Natalie, right there. And also tell us your favorite book, and then we'll get started. Because everyone did that the last session. We'll do it for you this session.
Oh no. So I'm Adina. I'm in Queens. I live, not too far from Natalie. That's how I got in. So thank you. And my favorite book. I don't know, but I'm reading The Expanse right now, and it's pretty good.
What book?
The 5th book of The Expanse, and it's pretty good. It's a sci-fi series.
Okay.
So it's just what I'm reading right now. It's good, but I can't think of a favorite really, off the top of my head.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Thank you for joining us. And all right, let's get right into it. We were just about to get into it, so let's go ahead and do that. And Sarah, do you have this copy?
I do have it.
Okay, and Natalie, you have this one too?
Yeah, was there another version?
No, I just want to make sure, because there's different editions maybe, but I think this is the most popular one, the one that probably everyone.
Yeah, that's the cover that was on my book.
Okay, so Mexican Gothic. I've never really read any sort of like Gothic type. I have read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and that maybe has some similar vibes because it's like an old creepy house, but nothing like super, Gothic, which Silvia talks about is like it's an emphasis on big feelings and a lot of like melodrama. Did you feel that in this book? Sort of an emphasis on the over dramatic and the expansion of like exaggerated things, exaggerated events, emotions, characters, etc. Someone want to chime in on that?
It's funny that you said that because like when I first started reading it, I was like, I don't know if I like this. This is so dramatic. But now that you've said like what it's supposed to the background, what it's supposed to be like, that makes more sense. I guess I've never read that style, and maybe that's why I was reading it and I was like, oh, this is predictable, it's gonna be a mushroom, like blah blah blah. Like I just kept thinking this is predictable until the end, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is, some of it's predictable and some of it's like, wow, that got crazy real fast. But yeah, I felt like it was very dramatic and kind of like, oh, woe is me, this is happening.
Definitely like a movie out of that time period where the only way to convey feelings was to be overly dramatic and to just be like, oh my gosh, this is awful and everything. So I feel like Silvia did a really good job with that, and I love this. The inner cover is so great, and every single time I would read something and then I would look back on this page and be like, is there any clues in this page that I can look at where it's going to tell me what's going on? And
wait, can you flash?
Yeah, let me see your inner cover. I didn't have that in my book.
You didn't have it?
No.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
like this, I don't know, I think it's another like type of there's a word for this, I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's like there's Noemi and there's High Place and there's the glowing mushrooms. So it's kind of like an old like movie poster. I think that was the effect.
Cool.
That wow, no one has that. Okay,
That'd be
well,
my library book.
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take a picture.
Mine did have it in there. I liked it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I think that they also use the melodrama or the dramatics, the character uses it to kind of get what she wants sometimes.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally.
Right.
Well,
That's like a thing.
she knows she's a babe, so she kind of uses it to her advantage.
Right.
Sort of like a damsel in distress, right? Using all of these old Hollywood tropes that I think are utilized throughout this book. There's a lot of tropes in this book, but it's also like, I don't know, it was an interesting twist on a lot of this stuff because it got really creepy, really.
I think the melodrama is also really increased just because of like the clash of different personalities from Noemi and the entire rest of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The no
right?
talking,
Yeah,
no music,
nothing.
extreme.
No
Yeah,
electricity.
no smoking.
Yeah.
No electricity. We walk around with candelabras everywhere because the house is in such disarray that they don't even want to do anything about it. Yeah, I know that. This was definitely a slow burn book, but I thought that it was like little like breadcrumbs left, and you just like had to pick up the breadcrumbs. So in my notes that I've taken, I really tried to focus on like what are those little tiny breadcrumbs that are gonna help me whenever this big moment arrives. And the first breadcrumb is the note that Catalina sends her, which pretty much like lays everything out right there on the table. When you read it for the first time, you're like, this sounds like gibberish. But when I don't know if anyone went back to that letter when everything was revealed and things really came into light, like, oh, it makes total sense now. Everything that she said was accurate and not crazy at all. It was actually a true reflection of what was happening, like foul ground below feet, false faces, false tongues, the web in which the spider walks, making the string vibrate. Like those were all real and true things that Catalina was trying to convey to her cousin, Noemi. So that was really interesting. And then, you know, I started to pick up on some of the imagery. Does someone want to chime in and give some of those like some of those images, those recurring images that we were seeing and picking up on? Because I definitely have a few, but maybe someone else has an idea of those recurring images that we were seeing throughout the book.
I remember she had a dream about the yellow light, or like a woman with the face of yellow light.
Mhm.
I remember that because I specifically, I think like a day after reading that, I had a dream, and it was like a scary dream about a cousin that was like trying to kill me, and they had that yellow light
Oh my
too.
gosh.
So I remember that. I will probably not forget that part. So I think the colors, the yellow, the green, kind of something rotting. I think it's something that gets repeated a lot, and the dampness. Sometimes when I feel like even here in my office, like there's water that comes through, and it gets these yellow rings in like the ceiling. So I thought that was one thing I picked up on.
Yeah, yellow, amber, gold. And anytime that those words were mentioned, I wrote them down. And eventually I was picking up on it. It's just being like, okay, yellow has a connotation, or golden, amber, whatever it was. Like the ring, there was an amber ring that Howard would wear. There was all of the imagery that we saw in Noemi's dreams. They were all like gold and glowy, and even the eyes. There were a lot of times where Noemi would see like a freckle of gold, like a gold fleck in was it Virgil? Virgil, and then Francis was kind of her buddy. But yeah, there would be a lot of times where you would see where in the book there would be a reference to like gold flecks in the eye. So anytime that happened, I wrote it down, and eventually it all came back to, you know, the mushrooms and the what does she call it? The the gloom, is that what it is?
The gloom.
The gloom,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, the gloom. It all comes back to that. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Any other imagery that anyone picked up on that maybe ties into the
Well, the cigarettes and the lighter too were all still in that like amber fiery tone. And that was when it like made her kind of stop. That's what made her feel like back in real life, right?
Yeah, well,
Out of
because
her
it
head.
was, yeah, because the gloom didn't like that, right? The
Mhm.
gloom, it was not making the gloom feel good. So anytime that, yeah, she did smoke a cigarette, and there was something that, what's her face? Florence said, please don't smoke again, it disturbs us.
Creepy.
Super creepy, because like, who's us, right? Like, who is us? Obviously, it's not just her and it's not just her family members. Oh no, Virgil says that. Florence doesn't say that. Virgil says that on page 197. He says, please don't smoke again, it disturbs us. Virgil was weird, y'all. He was really weird.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think early on, he was giving her some wine and she was feeling like it was getting to her head, and he kept on insisting on giving her more. So it's like
Uh-huh.
total creep. It's very creepy vibes from him.
Very creepy vibes. I'm trying to remember like what was the first creepy thing that he did that made me kind of feel a little hesitant about him. I don't
Just the
know.
way she first described him, like he's too handsome and whatever, like there's something wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, like he was kind of different than the rest of the family. Because they all had the Grecian nose. They talked about the Grecian nose and how that's an indicator of inbreeding, with that like hooked nose, that can be an indicator of inbreeding. I mean, the first time we kind of get the creep factor from Howard is definitely when he comes down to dinner that first night, and he immediately starts talking to her about like the cosmic race, and it's like,
Oh,
no, there's no light dinner speak, he immediately is like, so how do you feel about the cosmic race and this idea that there's, a more perfect race, when he's clearly like inbreeding.
They described his boils with a lot of details. More than I'd
true.
like to read about. I was like, every time.
Yeah, he was gross.
Yes.
And then we find out why at the end, and you're like, oh my gosh, what
Yeah.
is this? Okay, let me continue on here.
We also didn't talk about I think they say it explicitly at the end, but the snake biting its tail.
Oh, the
uh,
Ouroboros.
its own tail. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
repeated repetitively.
Yeah,
That's true.
right. I mean, that's like, I did. And does everyone have this like back portion back here with the gray pages? Does anyone else have that? It's like a discussion portion. But if you guys didn't have this front part, maybe you don't have that as well. But she actually includes a picture of the crest in one of these
Okay.
pages, the Doyle family seal. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh. Wow.
I pictured it different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same, but
That was
that looks
cool.
more like a mushroom cap.
That's true. It's more loopy.
Yeah.
so let me read what it says here. Oh, it's actually just a quote from the book. Noemi stood up, and as she noticed that there was a mosaic on the floor. Stepping back and looking around the room, she realized it circled the table. It was another of the snake symbols, the Ouroboros, that's the word they called it, slowly devouring itself, the infinite above us and below, as Virgil had said. So yeah, and there's like, you can kind of see there's some Celtic imagery in here, which is obviously, they were English when they came to Mexico. So that was a whole other thing that I really enjoyed about that book, was the actual history of the English people coming to Mexico to mine, and then basically enslaving the Mexican people to do their dirty work and mine all this stuff. And it just kind of created a really, really hostile environment in that community. So does anyone want to speak on that? Anything that they had already known? Because I never really knew that. That was the first time I've ever heard of it, but I'd be interested to hear somebody else's thoughts on either what they already knew or what they learned from that whole part of the plot.
I knew that there are parts. I'm not very well familiarized with Mexico's geography, but where my family's from, which is the center of it, the capital, I knew that there's parts or communities that were specifically German, like German immigrants, or well, basically I never really knew that there was also English people and English people that were coming, because a lot of, people that are white, they kind of, maybe look very similar. So people just kind of think that they're all one. But I thought it to be very interesting to find out that they were the owners of the mines, because I never really heard of the English being in Mexico. Mostly I would hear of Jewish communities or German communities, even some Chinese communities. I think they were also brought in as servants, though, not because they came to conquer anything. But yeah, it was very interesting. I think one of the conversations that Howard has with Noemi is that he tells her when he first sees her that she's darker in complexion than her cousin. It's very much a thing in Mexico, colorism. If you look whiter, you do get treated differently at restaurants, things like that. And I know now with all the social movements going on, it's a little bit more, people are willing to call it out, but it still is very much kind of backwards, like even if you go places where you think, it's modern, it's new, it's a city, like it's diverse, to the native people, you still are treated different if you're darker. So yeah, it was just kind of something I've always kind of known, because I think out of my cousins too, I'm a little bit more of on the tanner side. So it's something that even your family, we're all Mexican, so it's not like they mean it in a bad way, but they make note of. If you have a cousin that has, blonde hair or blue eyes, they call them güera, which is like blondie, a nickname for blondie. And then if you're, a little bit darker, a common nickname is morena, which is like, just means you're darker skinned. So I found that interesting to read about in a book.
Yeah.
Like a story.
Cool. Thank you for that insight. Yeah, it's something I would have never known prior to this novel, and also prior to what you just said. So that's good insight. Anyone else have anything else to add? No. All right. Let's talk about the dreams, because the dreams were creepy. But really, were they dreams? Were they?
Apparently not.
The first dream is on page 55. Talks about the golden mushrooms in the wall, turns to dust when she touches them. And that's when we see the figure at the door with the glowy face, but we don't know who that is, and they can't speak. And then that's when Noemi starts hearing that noise, like the buzzing noise, and that's recurrent throughout the thing. So that was like creepy, but nothing really crazy happens. Again, like a breadcrumb. Okay, that was enticing, but like, why is she seeing all that? Dream number 2, Virgil comes into her room and undresses her. And then she hears another female voice in her ear. And she's like getting aroused and she doesn't really know. She like doesn't want it, but at the same time she does want it. And that's the first time we hear the words "open your eyes." Says she said, oh, the voice. What am I writing? What am I reading here? Oh, open her eyes, said the voice several times, but she could not open her eyes because she was dreaming apparently. Dream number 3, that's when we see Ruth. And she has her rifle. And let's see. Oh, Ruth shoots the man behind the door and then shoots herself. And then the woman with the blurred face comes back and screams, but it's silent. She can't hear anything. And that's when Virgil wakes her up and says that she was sleepwalking.
Yep.
So now that at this point, we're like, okay, something's going on. Virgil's doing something. We don't know what it is. Like, why is he right there when she wakes up from her sleepwalking?
Wasn't he like barely dressed / not dressed when she came in too? And she was like, or was that a different dream? She like arrived in his room and was like, wow, he's basically naked
Oh yeah,
or whatever.
he said, "Oh, you were the one who walked in on me."
Yeah.
So try to make it seem like she,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then he gives her his robe.
Mm.
Yeah. And he's like, here, put on this robe. You need to, cover yourself. And then dream number 4. This one's the crazy one. This is where Noemi is in the forest clearing and she sees the woman in labor with all the attending women. And then there's a little girl in the chair and the man behind her with the amber ring. And then when the baby was delivered, it wasn't a baby, it was just a gray lump of like a tumor. And then it burst and it sent golden dust into the air and everyone tried to touch and inhale it. And the pregnant woman was suffocated by the little girl and the man chanting many times through the dreams, death overcome, more buzzing sounds. So yeah, I remember having to read that dream several times, just being like, what exactly is going on here? Because what the fuck? Like the tumor thing, that was just super strange to me. The gray lump of egg-shaped flesh like a tumor, which I guess is, well, what do you guys think that really
I would say it's a spore, right? Fungus, spores, that's how it's all spreading.
Maybe a brain.
Brain.
Oh, could be a brain, because that's Doyle's whole thing is like.
I kept wondering like who it was that was actually making her see that, because it would seem like if they wanted her to stay, they wouldn't like want her to know all that. But then Ruth was like in there too. So like who, or was it all of them like at different times sending different messages?
Yeah, maybe it was sort of
The gloom, or the lady that was controlling it all in the end.
yeah, it was like
Sister, wife? I don't know.
Well, I guess maybe it was a bit of a fight. You've got Ruth on one end, who obviously is, she knows this is bad. She doesn't want it to keep going. So she's trying to pull Noemi in one direction. And then there's the gloom and Howard and everyone trying to pull her in another direction. And so, yeah, definitely that's a good observation. It's like, who's on which side exactly? We're not really sure.
I thought at the beginning they were being poisoned, like her cousin was being poisoned and then she was going to start being poisoned. But yeah, it was pretty shocking.
At that first dinner, there's a reference to there being mushrooms in the food, but Noemi doesn't eat the mushrooms.
Mm.
She's like just pushing them aside and playing with them, but she doesn't actually eat the mushrooms. She does eventually eat the mushrooms though. So I guess, well, and yeah, and they're poisoning her too with all of the teas and the food that they're giving her in her bedroom. So yeah, just super creepy. And then dream number 5, that is, oh, that's the one where Virgil is like really trying to make the move. She's taking a bath but we don't really know if this is a dream or not. This one is the
Right.
most unlike a dream that she had. Noemi was taking a bath and Virgil came in and they kissed, and then she heard Ruth's voice, "Open your eyes." And then Noemi saw the imagery. She saw the egg and the snake and the mushroom. And then then she woke herself up and she was in a coffin. She heard the buzzing noises again. And oh, that's when she woke up in Virgil's room. So that time she woke up in Virgil's room and
The robe, yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of here.
Didn't she wake up and he was in the bathroom? Because didn't she, am I thinking of something else? Or did he come another time into the bathroom and she like, oh, that's at the end. That's at the end.
Yeah.
Where she
Oh.
like slams
After
him.
she ran away out of the house, yeah. He like brought
Yeah,
her into the
'cause
bathroom.
she woke up or something and his hands were like between her legs in the bathtub or something. And then she was like, no,
Yeah, that
not
was
happening.
after she tried to run away.
Got it.
Let's see if I
Using
can
all the
find
bathtub
that.
scenes.
Let's see if I can find where that was, which part of the book that's at. Oh, that's when she, is that where she damaged her face? When she fell trying to escape, she damaged her face, and if Naomi had damaged her face, Howard would have been very sore about it. That was the doctor, Dr. Cummins. Also creepy man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I wrote that one down. But anyways, yes, you're right about that. She wakes up and Virgil is like taking care of her, but also trying to pull some moves on her. All right, so we got all the dreams. And I guess let's talk about the ending real quick and get that out of the way, because that was crazy. And again, another part of the book that I had to read over and over and over again, just to like fully comprehend what was going on. And then going back and rereading the stuff that was referenced earlier in the book, especially Catalina's first letter, and then just like putting all the puzzle pieces together and sort of not really having an aha moment, because the book reveals that for us, but it's just all coming together. Does anyone want to tell us how you felt reading that part? Like, what was your feelings when you were reading that?
Well, I was concerned it was going to be like Dawn of the Dead, where she was never going to get out.
Right?
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was like, is this real? Did she really escape? I don't know.
yeah, seriously, did she really escape? How is she gonna get out of this? Yeah, just it happened so fast too. It was like you learn Howard Doyle is doing all of this, and then Naomi's like, oh, okay, I gotta go, I gotta get out of here. And then Francis is trying to basically help her get out of there, and they have to do all this stuff eventually to get down to the cave, and they see all the mushrooms. And the one thing I necessarily did not like about this book was there was the recurring sentence, open your eyes, open your eyes, open your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that was revealed, how it was Noemi not really opening her eyes, but understanding that the only way to break this was to burn everything. So when I was like, okay, open your eyes, I don't know if that was for me, the right words to describe the realization that Noemi had to have in order for her to break the curse, essentially.
Mhm.
Like when that happened, I was like, okay, that's not opening your eyes. That's just putting two and two together or something like that. So for me, it was like, okay, that was a bit of a letdown. Like, okay, open your eyes. Let's see if I can find that exact.
Well, and then at the very, very end, when she like decided that she like liked Francis and like kissed him and it was like for love, I was thinking like, bitch, open your eyes. Like you got him better, but you don't need to stay with him. Like, no.
Yeah, she didn't even think he was attractive, so.
No.
Yeah, she never thought he was attractive, but I mean, she got like emotionally attached to him.
Definitely.
But you
Yeah, I
don't
thought
like
that was
you
a
don't like
little-
owe him your love just because he saved you. You know, like everyone was good. Like, and even in the getting out, she wasn't like, I want you to be with me. She was like, don't you want to leave? You know?
Yeah.
Totally differently. That's interesting that you said that, because I read it as like she in her past life was so tied to social status and like whether somebody had money and good looks, even though she also cared about education
Right.
and furthering her degree. And I felt like being in this house opened her eyes to like what a true gentleman, for lack of better terminology, a true love, a true caregiver would be. And so I felt like she was starting to realize it doesn't matter what somebody looks like, it's really what's on their inside. And she was falling in love with it because she was talking throughout the book about like wanting to kiss him but holding back because he
Yeah.
was shy, blah blah. And so for me, I didn't read it as like just because he saved you. I read it as like her eyes, I mean, were kind of open to like, oh, this is what like real love, true love is. That's how I read it. But I also
Interesting.
Julia, the open your eyes thing, maybe I'm misreading it, but I didn't see it as the as what what's her name, the main character,
Noemi.
Noemi. I didn't see it as her having to open her eyes. I thought it was the lady who was like the hive mind. I don't know what you call it. Like she was the
Agnes.
main.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was something to do with her because her face, I pictured it, maybe I read it wrong. I pictured her face and everything was so consumed, and she was like open. She was telling people like Noemi to open her eyes and like eventually lead to her,
Mhm.
that she was, because that blew me away that she was the source of it all. Like I thought it was Howard and all them. Howard,
Yeah,
is that the old
she was
guy?
the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah. And that was that his sister? I didn't go back like you and reread who
That was his first wife.
Right, but Agnes was, well, first he said it was her cousin, his cousin. First he said it was his cousin, but then I thought later on he admitted that it was his sister. But I could be wrong.
whoever
I
the
thought
like
that too.
main person way back when, the original person, I thought that was his, because they're all in the cave when it goes back to the history of how all of this originated. Whoever discovered this mushroom thing was like trying to convey to others, and there were two sisters who were like talking to each other and they were worried. Maybe I'm making like I'm
Oh, it was her sister, not his sister.
Who's
The two wives were sisters, right?
No, I know
Yeah.
that this is totally separate. In the
Okay.
cave, it was the main guy who started all of this stuff in England.
Mhm.
He had two sisters who were onlookers and who were, I wish I'd written down the page, because they were like worried for their brother. And it said something about that guy sacrificing somebody. I feel like sacrificing her in a boat or something. And so that's who I thought this lady at the end was.
Are you talking about the cave scene sort of in the middle of the book? Where it basically talks about how this person came into, how Howard Doyle came into position of power.
I think so, but I for some reason thought it was somebody even before Howard. Like I thought Howard got all of his juju or whatever from this history. It almost, in my mind, I know this is cheesy, but I pictured it like how we tell our history of like the Pilgrims. Like it was like something way back when, and that was them retelling. So I thought it was one of the women from there, but I could be totally wrong because I misread a lot.
Well, if it's the page 206, 205, 206, all the stuff that's in italics is like a vision that Noemi had. Is this when he
Yes.
kisses her? Let me see. No, I don't think this is when she was kissing. I don't know. I'm gonna have to read this whole section over.
This is exactly what I was talking about because it says I'm on page 207, but I've skipped over. Who's Doyle? Doyle is
Doyle's
like Howard.
Because
Yeah.
Oh, is Howard.
yeah, we learn Howard Doyle essentially has been living for, I don't know how many years, 200 years through this method that he's been using. We find out at the very end of the book, he's been essentially get outing all of these people. I don't know if anyone's seen Get Out, but it's very similar to the movie Get Out, where he basically inhabits other people's bodies to stay alive, and he uses it with these magic mushrooms. So yeah, that Doyle in this specific little like side story here that's in italics, that is Howard Doyle, and people worship him because of what he does. Let's see here.
So it is those sisters that he married one and then the other one. I can't find it. Just says there was a part about a boat. There was a boat. He pulled the woman into the boat. She obeyed, numb and afraid. As he rowed off, she stared at him and he glanced away. He thought her unattractive. She was now frightfully ugly, with her belly grown and her eyes dull. But she was necessary. She would serve a purpose.
So who is that?
I don't know, because later on it says he has changed, the young woman whispered. Don't you see it? His eyes are not the same. It says she was with someone else, a woman with her hair falling loose around her shoulders as she spoke to another girl. The other girl, her hair plaited, shook her head.
I think that's...
Oh, here it is. Naomi shook her head too. Their brother, gone on a long voyage and now returned, and there were so many questions to ask, but he wouldn't let them speak. So it is his sisters.
Yeah.
But he's like,
Ugh,
it says
sister wives.
yeah, and the first woman, she thought a horror had befallen him and an evil possessed him, but the other one, she knew it had always been in him under the skin. I feared evil long ago. I feared him.
Inside.
Ugh.
From
So it's
the
one of those.
start.
It's one of those girls, but we still don't know who those girls are.
Well, it's not Agnes. Is it? It's not Agnes and what's her face?
Because he said that was his first wife. I guess it is. But that's so long. So when he's talking about it, he's talking about so long ago.
So long ago. Yeah.
And whereas in my mind, it was like, oh, your wife is present. Like
He's
is it
lying. I
present?
mean, he lies throughout the book. He says that I think he's trying to soften the blow by saying he married his cousin. Like, no big deal. I married my cousin. At least it wasn't my sister.
Yeah.
Percent it was. And then, obviously he lies about like how long he's been alive. So,
Yeah.
he doesn't reveal the whole truth. Let's put it that way. So yeah, that's Agnes.
Yeah.
I think it's Alice, right? Is that the other girl's name?
Alice is the second wife. Yep. The sister to Agnes.
So those two are Agnes and Alice then?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Agnes was the one who was sacrificed.
But so he was lying about the fact that they were his sisters. After reading this passage, are we agreeing that these women are his sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just Googled it. I found an article saying Howard sacrifices several women, including his sister/wife, to create the
Oh, there you go.
Wives.
Yeah, because he
Oh,
says
gross.
75, I hardly knew Agnes with the shrug.
Yeah,
I don't know her.
she was a pawn in his effed up little scheme. Okay. All right, so we figured that out. Great.
One mystery solved.
heebie-jeebies. Yeah, so the whole open your eyes thing, I thought that was, everyone has a different interpretation of what that means, which I think is really cool. I kind of was like, this whole time she's been saying to open her eyes, open her eyes. The only thing she needed to do was like understand what she say, a sleepwalker. She whispered, time to open your eyes. And that's when she tossed the lamp against Agnes's face. And that's when pretty much everything just went, that's when ish hit the fan, essentially. This book was crazy, y'all. I was like, I don't know. It was a good book.
Did no one else have nightmares after reading it?
I don't know if I did, but I definitely thought about it like before I would go to bed. You know,
I
just be
tend
like,
to read
what
before,
is,
like right before bed, so I think that's why.
like,
Yeah,
what
I
is
couldn't
going
read it
on?
before bed. It was too
Yeah, and
scary.
Sarah, she was like, I can't read it before bed. I have to read it in the morning during the day. I get that 100%. I do remember like before going to bed, just being like, what is the connection between the gold and the mushrooms and the buzzing noises and the open your eyes thing? Like, how are these all connected, and trying to come up with something? I don't know. Okay. So we pretty much reached the end of the book. We figure out what's going on. What did you all think of the end? We touched on it a little bit with somebody saying that they thought it was weird that Noemi ended up with Francis because why? I think it was you, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm not into that. I mean, can't even give herself some time to like breathe and like actually remind yourself you're not in the dream anymore. And like it just was very Stockholm syndrome, and I was not into that, because it was like she forgot all the shit that he just like let happen. And from my perspective, he was like, oh well, it's the only girl I've ever talked to, I'll ever, like, it's my only chance, you know. So like that, and that's kind of evil too. So he's no better than the rest of them just because he didn't have as powerful of manipulation powers that, you know. I'm
He
not
was, I don't know, he was bred to be a sacrifice though, like, which she didn't figure out until later. So like he was just dead. Like he was never gonna be able to live his life. So it was, I don't know, that was weird to have that revealed.
Yeah, I didn't think the
Was
story
his
itself
body.
needed to be like a happy little ending at the end anyway, so it was like just unnecessary.
I was disappointed because I thought the dad would come and like save her. Like
Yeah, that's what I was
waiting
waiting
for the dad too. I was totally waiting for the dad. I really was. I was like, when is he gonna show up and just be like, what the fuck's going on? You need to get out of here. Yeah, he didn't show up until everything was all said and done, and he was just like, good job.
I don't know, based on the beginning of the book, I wasn't that surprised by his lack of involvement. He was just like, get over there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your school doesn't matter. Just go.
And I thought maybe that he was maybe a part of it too. Like he was in on the
Yeah, it was
scheme.
hard to know.
Yeah, I'm also feeling a little bit like what happened at the end, you know? Like what does it mean? How do I interpret this? Like, is it a happy ending? Is it Francis is once again, like, do we really trust Francis? Basically,
Yeah.
we really trust Francis because he some things he would do, and they were really good and really helpful for Noemi, and some things you were like,
Yeah.
you know, he's got a family, right? He has loyalty to his family, but he also knows what they're doing is totally 100% fucked up. So
I mean, he did also shoot his mom at the end.
Sure.
So I guess the loyalty was fading away.
yeah. I guess maybe the more time he spent with Noemi, and the more you know, things were revealed, maybe it was kind of revealing to him as well, you know, like Stockholm syndrome, like you said, Sarah, like you don't really understand the gravitas of a particular situation until maybe somebody else kind of puts it into perspective for you. You know, because all he knows is the high place. All he knows is this decrepit, dank mansion on top of a hill. And then all of a sudden, this cutie shows up and kind of just throws everyone for a loop. Anyone else want to comment, put their opinions about how they felt about the end?
I just wanted to know, like, it didn't feel like anybody checked to see if the fire burned everything down, or like how deeply rooted everything is. If you think about like fungus and spores and things like that, like you'd have to really, really burn everything. You know, and then if there were links to you know, some of the mining caves and things like that, like when you burn up on the hill, does it link to the cave? Like, I just was like, somebody needs to go in with a hazmat suit and figure that out. But I also was like, well, maybe she's leaving it as like a open-ended for the sequel.
Yeah. Is it gone?
Is it
That's a good
gone? Is it
question.
truly gone? Is Francis truly a good guy, or are there ulterior motives? We don't know for sure.
Although he did ask her to kill him. He like
right,
was kind of like,
he was
do
like, I'm sort of the last of the Mohicans, so to speak. Do you want to really end this? And she was like, no, I love you. And I think we can get through this because I love you. Like, the power of love is enough to stop this ridiculous
fungus that has been inhabiting everything. I was like, oh, miraculously you kill everything else, but you don't have any fungus. I mean, I guess also in like the, you know, I think of, it's not the exact same, but I'm thinking of the mold world, you know, in the autoimmune world. It's like people work so hard. They can move out of a house that doesn't, you know, that has mold. They can move into a clean space. They have to do all these like detox things. And so I guess from an autoimmune perspective, I was like, he still got it. He still got it. We got to figure out how to get rid of that.
They took the magic potion.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We're slowly killing it. He needs more.
Yeah.
Yes.
He needs the magic potion. Interesting. Okay, I like
Yeah,
all of those.
also, speaking of the potion lady, I felt like that was all like they needed to be much more clear with their directions. I was like, lady, you were the one making this little brew, and then you didn't have even so much as a label that says don't overdo it.
Don't mix
Well,
with
she did. I
mushrooms.
think she did like just tell her in passing. She was just like, oh, by the way, don't take too much of this because it'll make you seize up. But Noemi was probably not paying attention.
She said that because I don't think she knew that there was a fungus growing within her. Right? I think she just said, like, it's not gonna get rid of it. I don't even think did she say like a certain amount? I don't think she said take a certain amount. And I don't think she knew, if she knew that she had fungus in her that would react to the tincture, she wouldn't have given it to her.
You mean the what would you, I don't know what to call her, apothecary or
Yeah.
witch doctor?
Herbalist.
Herbalist, that's a nice way, yeah.
Yeah, herbalist, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
better term.
Yeah.
Natural medicine.
Yeah.
I have a question that I think is in my mind, I think is not a huge plot hole, but it's a plot hole nonetheless. Okay, so you remember how Noemi had random rashes and burns on her wrist?
Oh, from the
Mhm.
evil eye bracelet.
Is that from the evil eye bracelet?
Mhm.
Is that the explanation then? That she had this evil eye bracelet and it was causing a rash that would just miraculously disappear?
The bracelet also
Because-
disappeared,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah,
it's
she couldn't
more of-
find it.
yeah, I think it's like the vial of stuff that, the tincture that she took, that it reacts. And so what's his name that was basically grooming her, whatever, not grooming her, but close to doing something to her. I'm bad with names. Was it,
Virgil.
I feel like Virgil would have like somehow removed it in that dream sequence thing. But I'm with you. I think that that left a burn mark that disappeared. But he also said, he mentioned something like he created that burn and then was able to remove it, because she said she had it on her hand and then he did something and he was like, see, or he did something and it removed. So it might have been something he created
I need to go back and reread that, because I'm just like, what was that ever really explained? Like, but I guess it was. Can anyone else back up the story there and just tell me that
I read it as she was envisioning that. And then when she was awoken from the dream, then it was gone. So that was kind of another signal that she was out of that dream space.
Mm.
It wasn't right, like it wasn't actually burning her.
Right.
Well, what about when she went to the doctor, like the doctor in town, and he saw the rash and put cream on her wrist and treated her?
Mm-hmm.
and then said it'll be better in several weeks. And then she came back She came back some
Like 2 days
time,
later, and it
he
was
was like, I've
gone.
never seen that
Mhm.
heal
I
so
feel like-
fast before.
Yeah, but I feel like she saw Virgil and then all of a sudden it was gone. Like she said something to Virgil and then it was
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, I'll need to reread some of
Yeah.
those parts, because I was just like, that was never explained.
Was it just the fungus, like the super healing powers or whatever?
Perhaps.
I don't remember.
I don't know. Maybe I'll go on Reddit or something. I don't know.
I did find it funny when she visits the doctor the first time to try to get a second opinion. She asked about Martha, the healing lady,
Mhm.
and he tells her, "Oh, are you checking in with every expert in town?" So then I thought, oh, there's more doctors here, and then I keep reading, and it's like, oh, it's the lady that does the healing potions, and I thought that was very funny because sometimes people will it's like herbal medicine, and it's not always like, you can't always trust it because you don't know how you're going to react to it. But in Hispanic communities, like it's really trusted, so like people really do regard herbalists as like experts.
Mhm.
And I remember taking a class at UCI, it was medical anthropology. We had to study like the difference between like cultural medicine and then actual like I guess Western medicine. So it was funny that he was asking her, like, you're checking with every expert? And I'm
Mhm.
like, wait, who's the expert? And then it's like the herbal lady. And I was like, oh, that makes
Interesting.
sense.
Okay. Okay, so anyone else have anything else to say? I have a little activity for us all. But if anyone had any like last thoughts, comments, words, questions, now, speak now. Or forever hold your peace. Anyone? No? Okay. So there are some discussion questions in the back of this book, which I really like. So I figured I would just use them. So if you have the book in front of you, it's on page 309 in the gray section in the back of the book, questions for discussion. And there are 9 questions. There's only 6 of us, so we'll only get to 6 questions. but I've got my little gravy bowl here. It was the only thing I could find in this room here. And I have just numbers on a piece of paper. So I'll just draw them at random and we'll answer them. And if you don't have the book, I'll read the question to you so you know what it is. And we'll just give you like, I don't know, 30 seconds to think about your answer. And then you can just give us like a quick little answer. And that's it. Does that sound good? Yeah. Okay, so from my screen, it goes Heather, me, Adina, and then Daniela, Sarah, Natalie. So that's the order that we'll go in. So Heather, you're first. So I'm gonna pick from the fancy old gravy bowl that my grandma left me. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this thing. Okay, Heather, you have question number, I don't know if you can see that, 3.
I don't have the questions here.
Okay, question number 3. Who was your favorite character and why?
Ooh. That's tricky. Part of me wants to say Noemi because I want to have the like badass lady who saves the day type thing. But I hated her like cocky side or like superficial side. I will say, and Sarah's gonna hate me for this, I want to say Francis. I just wish he had a little bit more of a backbone. I like Francis.
He had a good character arc. I will say that.
Yes.
He had a good character arc. Okay, thank you. This is me. It's my question. I hope I get a good one. Da, 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 da. Okay. I have question number 8. Question number 8. Aha, here we go. Would you read a sequel to this story? Would you prefer it feature Noemi and Francis, or would you prefer a story in the same world with new characters? Ooh. Yeah. I like that the end of this book is sort of open to interpretation. You can interpret and be like, oh, love conquers all, and they lived happily ever after. Or is it Francis still has a little bit of the gloom in him and things are just history will repeat itself at some point. I think as much love as Noemi might be able to provide to Francis, the gloom still lives in him and the gloom will come back out. And so the sequel resides somewhere in there, like maybe they have a child and the child is like, I hate to say this, but the child is like the kid in The Omen. I don't remember the kid's name, but he's a sinister person. And so that navigating that and figuring out how to conquer that. So I think that the gloom is not dead completely. It's still there and it's going to fester and it's going to come back in a crazy way. And then the second part of the question, would you prefer it to feature Noemi and Francis, or would you prefer a story in the same world with new characters? Personally, I think it should, personally for me, like if I'm watching a TV show and then the new season, it's like all new characters. I hate that. I want the original characters. So it would have to be Noemi and Francis with some new characters in there as well. That's my answer. Okay, next is Adina. Dun, 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 dun. Adina, you have question number 5. Do you need me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, number 5. Well, we already kind of discussed this. What did you think about the ending, and what do you wish had been different?
What do I think about the ending? Yeah, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I don't know, it seemed very abrupt that they just got out. So I'm like still wondering if like, was it really real? and all that. So different. I don't know. Maybe she should have killed Francis.
Didn't just miss independent.
Just
not
hang out
having-
with her cousin or something, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I
Other
think
than a
people
clear,
probably
like,
would have liked
we're
that she killed
definitely free.
Francis.
What's that?
That I think some people would have liked that she killed Francis.
Well, would have felt more closure, except for that the gloom is in her. So I'm not sure if that would have solved anything.
I think it also would make it more gothic if she had to kill the person she loved.
Hmm.
Right.
Because I think they mentioned Wuthering Heights at the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know,
I-
kind of sad, but a good end.
Has anyone else read Wuthering Heights?
A long time ago, yeah.
Yeah.
High
I love
school.
that book. I read it
Yeah.
several years ago. I loved it. And I was definitely feeling similar vibe, like this very dark, removed place on the countryside, very isolated from the rest of the world. And yeah, Wuthering Heights kind of being like, Noemi was kind of like Catherine in a sense. And I don't know. Yeah, definitely there is some definite imagery similarities between the two. So it's a classic. I don't know, it's not for
Yeah.
everyone, but does a really good job. Okay. Thank you, Adina. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? No? Okay. Next is Daniela. Daniela, you have question number 4. Do you need me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, number 4. How did you feel about the relationship between Noemi and Francis?
I thought it was sweet because he seemed obviously more innocent than her. And I think she gave him that life back, or I guess breathed more life into his life is what I'm trying to say. So I liked it. I think it was still like an innocent relationship on his end, but he was lying to her the whole time. And I feel like that's really shady and almost manipulative. So
Definitely.
it was kind of nice to see, like you mentioned earlier, his character arc develop because of her
Mhm.
and the changes that he had in his own character because of her. But it's something that is concerning when you love someone, but they've been lying to you and they've kind of enabled others to be able to hurt you. It's not real love, I guess,
Yeah,
in the end. So
manipulative.
conflicted, I guess, is the answer.
Okay, yeah, I think we're all kind of in agreement on that. It was nefarious. It was,
There you go.
yeah,
Right.
there was some nefariousness going on, and there were moments where I was like, oh, what a good guy. And there were other moments where I was like, what the fuck? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
All right, Sarah, you are next. You have question number 6.
Can you read it?
I can. What do you think the author's purpose was in writing this book? How well do you think she got it across?
I don't know. I didn't do any research on the author herself. I did see she's written several other books though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, I guess if the goal was to write a Gothic, I guess, but I still agree with what Daniela said earlier. It would have been more Gothic to have a dramatic ending, not so for love at the end. Because especially because it got like so detailed and gory at one point that I was like, oh, like it's getting there. And for it to end so light, I was like, ugh, like that didn't really fit with, you know, how I felt the mood was most of the time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think, yeah, the purpose was to bring back the old timey Gothic tropes in a new and refreshing way.
I will say
Um,
though, I feel like when she went to town, I would have liked more because I've read some books where like, it's written for English speakers, but they'll have, like what they said in Spanish like first and then they'll say the English second. And that was something that I thought was really missing from it being a Mexican Gothic. Like I get it that they were in the house that they like, oh, they're, English, so they don't. But like in the town, I would have thought it was like especially useful for her, to be, a Spanish speaker and to like know more of the culture and that type of thing.
that's true. And then the whole thing with Francis telling her what to do
Hmm.
in Spanish so that the gloom wouldn't understand what they were saying. Yeah, I definitely appreciate when an author does that. The last time a book I read where the author did that was The Paris Apartment, where she would say whole phrases en français and then translate it into English. There are other books that I've read recently that take place in, like there's one that took place in Lisbon and there's one that took place in France. And besides like please and thank you, there was nothing. And it was just like, come on, it's really not that difficult to have a few phrases in that language, obviously translated right afterwards, but to give us a sense of place,
Hmm.
essentially a sense of place and a sense of culture. So
I'm
I
glad
agree
you
with
brought
you
that
there.
up, Sarah, because I was confused by that. Because sometimes it would say in the book that she would switch
Mhm.
to English or she would switch to Spanish, but you didn't actually see the switch.
Right.
You didn't see their actual conversation in that language.
Mhm.
I was confused by that, and I remember I would read it, and in my head I'm reading it in English, but there were some words that were obviously in Spanish, but I didn't register that she was switching to Spanish. So I would read them in English, and I'm like, wait, what am I reading? Which is always very, very funny because when I was first learning how to read, I actually learned how to read in Spanish first. My parents just taught me that first because that's what they knew. And in school is when I started to actually learn English, when I was in kindergarten and first grade. So I think I think it's on the very first page, she was describing something called chinas poblanas. Chinas poblanas, it's a dress that folk dancers wear.
Mhm.
And I remember reading it as China's poblanas, and I was like, what are Chinas? And then I realized, oh, it's in Spanish, it's
Yeah.
China. I was so thrown off.
Hmm.
That's
Is
funny.
it realistic to believe that Doyle or any of the mushroom people would not have learned Spanish over like 300 something years? Like that's the other part I don't get.
You think you'd have enough time to learn a new language?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if they're just like stuck in the high place the whole time,
I guess.
but
It's
I mean,
just-
but they're also working them, well, running the mines, and they're essentially
Yeah.
enslaving a whole race of people to do that. So, who knows? Yeah.
Would that go along with the purist thing of like, why would I learn such a like lower
maybe.
language than where I'm coming from in the superior race?
Yeah, right. And I'm keeping the bloodlines pure, blah, blah, blah.
And
But
they
somehow
brought their
Francis
own
learned it,
servants
so.
too, right? Like they had their own English servants.
Mm.
Like they
Yeah.
really have to.
Yeah.
That's right. Adina, were you gonna say something?
Oh, just saying Francis somehow learned it, so I guess,
He learned it from his dad, right? Didn't his mom have to go stray away from the family to produce him?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes. Yeah, that's another layer to that story, is having to bring in outside blood.
But if you're gonna live for so long and like live in another country, I don't know. I just think you'd probably try to learn the language.
It
Normal
would be
people
to your
would.
benefit, regardless or not. Yeah.
It would have benefited him if he did, because then he would know their plans, right?
Yep.
Essentially. I like this. This is good. This is good. Okay, Natalie, are you ready?
Yeah, last but
Okay.
not least.
You have question number one.
Ooh.
Question
Yeah.
number one. How did you feel about the historical period and setting in which the book takes place?
That's a good question. So it took place in the 1950s, and I feel like, I mean, I feel like the house didn't necessarily like well describe the era that it was in, because there was electricity, but they weren't using electricity for the other reasons. So, you know, the candles would have been more fitting of an older time. You know, but there was electricity, there was things like that. I mean, I think definitely different elements of the house showed parts of the history, describing like the old-fashioned drapery and the furniture and how the house hasn't been updated. But yeah, I didn't really think a lot about that when I was reading. Actually, like I didn't even realize until just like reading the back of the book that like it was from the 1950s. I thought I would have guessed maybe like the 80s or 90s, something more recent.
Yeah, I mean, the historical period, we obviously learned a lot about what was really happening in Mexico. In the decade, well, in the century, really, prior to the 1950s and how all of that connected. So I thought that was really interesting. And then, yeah, like the high place, I feel like that was another character in and of itself, was just the house itself and its own sort of personality and characteristics. And obviously it was infested with the gloom and the mold and the fungus and everything. So that was a big part of it. And I like that. I kind of liked the house. I thought the house was kind of like charming in a sense, if that makes any sense. It was charming, it was creepy. It was exactly what sort of like a Gothic tale would be like. It was very similar to like The Haunting of Hill House. And I don't know, what are some other cultural references that would be similar to this with like an old creepy house?
I didn't know The Haunting of Hill House was a book, but I'm definitely going to read it. I love the Netflix
Oh, it's a
show.
board game. Is that something different?
What?
The Haunting or The Haunting on Hill House? Do they have a board game for that?
A board game?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I just knew of like the Netflix show.
Yeah, it was a Netflix show, but it's also a book by Shirley Jackson. Good Halloween type read about a haunted house. It's also a movie. It was a movie with like Owen Wilson or something. Not very true to the book at all, but pretty entertaining, I thought.
If Mexican Gothic was a movie, I would watch it because I do want to see like what that image of the house would look like.
So
It's gonna
Hulu,
be a TV series, right?
yeah, Hulu picked it up.
Oh, cool.
Oh my gosh, hey.
Yeah, and they're gonna turn it into a mini series. So it's gonna be a limited amount of episodes. I don't know how many. And yeah, yeah,
So is
Hulu
this
picked it
like a
up, but I don't know anything else about it. I don't know if they've started production, casting, all of that stuff. It just like that's it.
I forget who the producers, some famous.
Is it? I thought it was Kelly Ripa. I think it's Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos. Like I think she read the book and was just, I want to do this, and obviously she's got the money to do that. So
I hope it looks cool.
good for her. Did we want to conquer the rest of these questions, or how are you guys feeling? It's like 10 o'clock basically. So I'll defer to you guys. Well, not for Heather and for Daniela, but
Yeah, I need to go to bed, but feel free to carry on without me.
well, you're already in bed, so, or it looks like
Yeah.
you're in bed. Are you in
I
bed?
am.
We've entered into our hibernation phase. I don't like it. But it feels, I mean, I'm look at me. I'm wearing a tank top. I'm friggin' hot right now. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. All right. Good night, guys. Good talk.
Good night, Sarah. Thanks for joining.
Yeah,
I was
next
just gonna
time.
say, if there's 2 more, I wouldn't mind hearing what they are.
Sure.
There's 3 more actually.
Oh.
There's 3 more. So, number 2. Does anyone, oh, well, just raise your hand if you want to answer this question. What did you think of the main character, Noemi?
I felt that we were nothing alike. And I was like, she figured out how to survive in this house, and I would not have figured it out. I wouldn't have been able to play all these games she played or do any of this deferring to, and I don't know if it was like a generational thing because she grew up in the 50s, but or like lived in that era, but I was like, I don't know how to do any of this.
I would say
That's
at
my
first
feeling.
I didn't quite like her, and then my opinion changed as I read.
Yeah, I feel like she played, what do you call that? Not the damsel in distress, like the beautiful fool. Like she was just a beautiful fool, but she was smart.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, she was smart. It took her a while to figure it out, but I mean, that's kind of the point of the book, is her figuring out what was going on and how to survive, because she at some point in the middle of the book she realizes that she might be there forever. So you know, to figure out how to get out of there is probably the most important thing to her.
How long do we think she was actually there for?
What's that?
How long do we think she was actually there for at the house?
I don't know, that's a really good question.
I have
I
no
would
idea.
say several months, years. No,
I don't think years, but seemed like months
Interesting.
to me.
I thought it was like weeks. Like I felt like she got there. She spent several weeks trying to
yeah, maybe
like
just weeks.
help her cousin. And then like, because I think if she'd been there longer than weeks, she would have been more consumed by the gloom. Although she did
Mhm.
take the tincture potion thing.
Yeah,
Is there a
several weeks.
possibility that time was warped when she was in there? Like, you know
Yeah,
how in some stories, like you're somewhere and it feels like a few days, but then it's actually been a long time. I don't
yeah.
know.
That could
Well,
explain why her dad never came.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And she
I
got
mean,
married.
it is called the high place. So, you know, and there were mushrooms, magic mushrooms. So distortion of time at the high place.
Well, and think how many times she talked about falling asleep with dreams, right? That to me spanned the time of like, you know, you said there were 5 dreams.
Yeah,
That's at least 5 days.
yeah,
She was like pretty aware of what these dreams, like towards the end, she was aware of more aware of what was happening in them and not so fearful, but ready to like defend herself. I don't know. I felt like if she had those dreams over 5, I don't know. For me, it felt like it was just a couple weeks, but
yeah, probably. You're probably right.
I have no idea.
A lot happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoot, a lot happened.
A lot and nothing too. So
All right, question number 7. What did you enjoy most about this book? What did you enjoy the least? And what changes to the story, if any, would you make? That's a big question. So I guess we'll just tackle this one question at a time. What did you enjoy most about this book? Anybody?
I like the references, like I mentioned at the beginning, of things like the soap that they were using to wash the clothes, and the doctor, he went to UNAM, which is the very popular university in the capital. That's actually where my dad went to school.
Oh,
So
cool.
I liked that. I enjoyed seeing that in a book because I mean, I've read books in Spanish, but it was mostly during my AP class. So most of the authors were like Pablo Neruda, like from other, like not necessarily Mexican authors. I haven't read many Mexican authors, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I found it interesting to
Yeah.
see references to things that I know that I'm aware of weaved in throughout the book.
Okay. Thank you. The next, well, then someone answer the next part of the question, which what did you enjoy the least?
I think for me, there, like at the beginning of the book, or I guess I call the beginning everything except for when she started to realize what was happening. It felt slow. It felt like she didn't, like it was great once she figured things out and was like, I'm gonna start doing things. But leading up to that, it felt like it was repetitive, like weird stuff's happening. I'm not allowed to see my cousin. I feel weird. And then it was like that cycle. And I wanted her to be like, something's not right. I'm leaving this house. I'm getting help. I'm not just like gonna go into town and get medicine. Like I'm legit gonna get police. I'm gonna get whatever involved. I mean, obviously the story wouldn't have ended the way it did. And I liked the ending. But I think as I was reading, I was like, do something. Like obviously something's off. These people are weird. They don't allow talking, like, you know, and they're kind of abusive to you and your cousin, like get out.
Yeah, I really feel like it's this amount of book that was like the oh shit, and the rest of it was like, okay.
Yep.
In a nutshell. Okay, yeah. Slow burn, maybe too slow.
Yeah.
And then what changes to the story, if any, would you make? I feel like you sort of just answered that. Any contribution?
Francis dead. First there, he's not here.
I would form a love story with Noemi and the town doctor. I thought
I
that
wanted there to be a
Ooh.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know,
That would have been better.
Yeah.
because
Yep.
well, I mean, he was attractive, so you know.
and
thought
I
maybe-
would have killed
And not
Katarina.
shallow.
I thought she was gonna go a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, and the last question, number 9. If you were interviewing the author, what questions would you have for her?
Maybe what inspired her to make it a Gothic novel instead of like a telenovela novel.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what is the difference between like a Gothic trope and a telenovela trope? Like what?
I would say, I mean, I don't know if those are actual novels, but they tend to be more of the dynamics between the characters. So
Mhm.
like, or I guess the house is not wouldn't play a part, I guess, if it was like more like a telenovela
Mhm.
than it being a Gothic book. So the settings are not as important as the relationships and the drama between the characters.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, because I watch soap operas and it's literally all about the interactions between characters, but it's the interactions like over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The same thing said over and over and over and over again. Okay, anyone else? A question you would have for the author? Why didn't you kill Francis?
Yeah.
Maybe how she came up with Noemi's personality, like if she based it on someone or if she just thought of it out of the blue.
Yeah,
Because like I said, it just wasn't someone I could relate to very much, like the actions that she took.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I don't know, maybe she kind of compared it to like a 1950s movie actress
yeah.
in a sense. Like she's not supposed to know any better.
Right.
Beautiful. It's what is it? Did I say it already? A beautiful fool? Like
Yeah.
a beautiful fool. Like you don't know anything. But at the same time, she saved the day, sort of. Yeah, she saved the day. So there's that sort of duality there. Any other questions for Miss Silvia?
I would ask her, how much study she had to do to talk about all the different types of mushrooms and decide like how mushrooms would play into this and the interconnectedness and like the, adverse reactions when you mix things. I don't know. I like all the sciencey herbalist things. I'd ask her about that.
Yeah, so part of this, there is a little section here, an interview with Silvia Moreno-Garcia, where she does answer some of these questions. So like some of the medical and scientific issues, she talks about eugenics. Obviously, eugenics is a big one. Women's health care, like hysteria, the whole idea that hysteria wasn't actually hysteria wasn't declassified as a mental health disorder by the American Psychiatric Association until the 1950s. So the number of women physicians was also very small, and male doctors would not have taken women's concerns seriously. I don't know. I feel like there was a part where she talks about the mushroom. Oh, here. Okay. What's up with the mushrooms? Question, what's up with the mushrooms? Answer, they're cool. There's something called mycorrhizal networks, which is basically a fungi community, am I saying that correctly? Fungi communication system in forests. There's also something called a hub tree or mother tree. They are the central hubs for the network. Fungi are incredibly diverse, and I love looking at them. The transformations they go through are fascinating. Shaggy ink caps start off looking white, but eventually turn black and secrete a black liquid, dissolving themselves. They're edible in their initial stage. The calming ink cap or tippler's bane is perfectly edible, but if you consume it with alcohol, it's poisonous, and so on and so forth. So sounds like it just comes from a place of just
Personal
intrigue.
interest.
The black secretions that you mentioned are inspirations for Howard's really gross boils.
Yeah. I'm so interested to see who is cast as who, if and when this really does come into fruition, like who's going to be Howard Doyle, because in my mind, Howard Doyle is like this super skinny, super tall, just like, I don't know. That's what I picture. It's just
I pictured him hunched over.
Yeah.
Almost, like disfigured. Yeah.
Did she describe him as skinny? For some reason, I didn't imagine him.
I don't know. I just like he's an old, skinny, like barely standing kind of person.
I think maybe because the latter parts when he was in bed all the time, I don't know. I didn't imagine like him being that skinny.
Yeah.
Just gross.
Yeah.
Sinewy.
I remember thinking when she was describing them and also Frances that they were very pale. I thought that it was almost going to be like a vampire story. They're going to end up being vampires, and then she would talk about the wine. She'd like always be complaining about the wine.
Yeah, that it was sour.
Vampire story.
Turns out it was mushrooms.
I know.
Gosh, okay. There's so many layers to this story. I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. That's my rating, 4 out of 5. And just because, yeah, the ending, not so super satisfying, maybe, but also like I believe in the power of love, so maybe it works out. I don't know.
I have a question for you, Julia.
Yeah.
How did you come about picking, or like what intrigued you about the book?
Well, I found it at a thrift store. And I like to read books based on sort of like the season that is taking place. And so I picked this up in like, I don't know, June or July, and said, I'm definitely waiting to read this in October. And that was before this book club idea came into fruition. So by the time I was like, okay, I need a book for September and I need a book for October, I was like, duh, this is definitely my October book. I knew it was like a popular sort of book talk, bookstagram book that everyone was reading. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I have to pick this up. So that's it. Like most of these books that I picked, it's because I found them at the thrift store. And so they just sort of fall in line with either the season that I'm reading them in, or in this case too, it's multi-layered. It's both like a creepy October read, and it's also featuring a Hispanic author for Hispanic Heritage Month. So, that kind of thing. November, it's just, I don't know. It's what I
No, that's cool.
yeah. I have no idea what December is gonna be. I need to go to the thrift store, I guess. Pick it out.
I actually went this weekend and I found Madame Bovary.
Madame Bovary.
Yes,
Is that
I've never read
a
it.
classic?
I think so. It's from a French author. Oh, I think his last name is spelled Gaulbert. Oh, I wouldn't know how to pronounce it. Gobert. Mhm.
Gustave Flaubert.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Madame Bovary.
Close.
Let's see. Plot synopsis. Oh yeah, this is definitely a classic. Madame Bovary takes place in Provincial, northern France, near the town of Rouen in Normandy. Charles Bovary is a shy, oddly dressed teenager arriving at a new school where his new classmates ridicule him. He marries the woman his mother has chosen for him, the unpleasant but supposedly rich widow, Eloise Dubuc. Sets out to build a practice in the village of Totes. Yeah, that sounds like a classic book to me, written in 1857. Are you gonna read it?
I picked it up because I've heard the name before and I like the cover. It was one of those series of books that has a lot of classics. And they
Yeah,
all have like the same covers.
yeah.
So they had Jane Eyre, they had Emma, and I already have those, so I picked that one up. I've heard about it, but I've never read it before, so I might add that one.
Okay.
It's keeping me busy though, like being in the book club. It's taking me a while to like get through the books, and I already picked up the next one, the On the Road.
Yeah.
So,
The Road. Let me see.
oh yeah, The Road.
Julia, was there any inspiration for the next book on the road for next month, the apocalypse
other
novel?
Not really. No, because I have a whole pile of books down here. You see, that's my to be read pile, my TBR pile, and I kind of think like, okay, what would be a decent read? Like, I don't want us to be reading a book about summer, because not summer. I don't know. Some people might like that, like, oh, I like to be transported to a place in a time that I'm not currently in. I don't know. I like to read this season or like the mood that we're in. So The Road was another book that I was just like, well, I think this one's good because it's about a family, sort of. But other than that, I don't know too much. Heather, you read it before?
I've read it a long time ago, and I can't remember if I've watched the movie or wanted to watch the movie, but it is super, if I remember correctly, super depressing and disturbing.
Oh,
And so I think I just was never in the mood to watch that. It's kind of like A Man Called Ove, or whatever, where it's like sad and disturbing and happy
And uplifting
They're-
at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're also making that into a movie too.
It could be.
But they're making Ove is gonna be Tom Hanks.
Oh yeah, I feel like I
Yeah.
saw that.
Yeah. But he's gonna be called Otto. Anyways, we digress.
Yes.
Yeah, so I basically just like go to the thrift store and I look for books that I have either seen on Bookstagram or seem intriguing to me. And I know Cormac McCarthy is a very prolific author. He wrote No Country for Old Men. That's the one that comes to my head, but he's got a bunch of books that he's written. So I've never read his work, and I know The Road is, I mean, it was in Oprah's book club, and then it was turned into a movie with Viggo Mortensen. So I was like, yeah, sure. I don't know. That's kind of it. I don't, the method to my madness isn't really all that maddening. So I don't know what December is going to be. What do you got? Would you like it to be something that's like transportive because it's cold and it's, you know, I don't know, snowing maybe or whatever, dark at 4 o'clock? Or would you rather it reflect the mood and the times that we're currently in?
This is more of a, go ahead.
I said the current season sounds fine to me,
Okay, Heather.
but I haven't been in a book
Well,
club.
Heather, you can't really say that about Heather because Heather lives in the Southern Hemisphere.
That's true. It's opposite.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more of, and maybe this stems from, you know, someone who celebrates different holidays, and who currently lives in a place where like everything is Christmas centered. Like they have no idea. Like some people don't even know what Jews are. Like they would have no idea what that is.
Mhm.
And not saying that it should be a Jewish centered book, but I wonder if we do something that's, I don't know, it'd be worth a Google to look at, but like something that's centered around I was going to say winter holiday, but December holiday that isn't Christmas. Like if there was something, you know, with about like a Jewish family during Hanukkah or, you know, Kwanzaa or whatever is celebrated during like December or like November, December, January type months.
Yeah, I love that.
I would like that too.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll see what I can find. It might be something that I actually have to seek out and purchase myself as opposed to trying to find it. But I mean, I've found some gems at the thrift store. There's a thrift store down the street that has their 99 cents paperback, and then Wednesdays 25% off, 99 cents. So
Wow.
It's a good deal.
it's a problem. It's a huge problem. I can't go unless I absolutely have to. I mean,
You're gonna need another bookshelf, Julia.
I know I do. I need to get rid of whatever's on these shelves here. But yes, I do need another
I have a
bookshelf.
lot of
Because look, this pile over here are all the books that I've read,
The one on the side.
and they don't have a space on my shelf.
Wow.
Oh,
But I mean, my to be read pile, that's not too bad, right? I'm
that's smaller than mine.
Has anyone read The Tattooist of Auschwitz?
What?
Tattooist of Auschwitz?
What's that about?
Should that be our December? I don't know if I want that to be the December read.
I can't remember if I have read it. Is there a movie
It takes
for it?
place in April, so it's like a spring. Well, it starts in April. I don't know if it ends in April too, but yeah, that probably shouldn't be our December read. I'll think about it. But I like your suggestion, Heather. I'll take that into consideration. Great. Okay, anything else? Anything at all before we log off and go to bed? Well,
Most
you
of
don't
it.
have to go to bed, but you know.
I'm jealous that Dina doesn't have to work tomorrow.
That is correct.
Because it's election day.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you guys get off Friday too. And Josh is in jury duty on Monday and Wednesday, so he has like one work day this week. My husband got called for 6 months of jury duty, which I didn't even know existed.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's just twice a week, but it's Mondays and Wednesdays until April.
Can he tell you anything?
Yeah, he I mean I don't know how, if he's really supposed to, but um
Tell
I
us.
I don't tell many people. But yeah, he's like reviewing different cases, and he loves it. He's having a really great time.
That's good.
Lucky.
Yeah,
I would do that too.
I know, and my PD pays for everything. I looked at my handbook, and my company only would pay for 3 days of jury duty.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I've actually never been called for jury duty.
Really? Wow.
I know. I'm hoping that I didn't like miss the letter or something. And I don't
You
end
would
up.
know, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
You're gonna get it soon now.
Although I wouldn't mind. I do enjoy being, civically engaged. But I guess, yeah, if it was 6 months, I would mind.
I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, I
That's a lot.
didn't even know that type of jury duty, grand jury existed for that long of a period.
Seriously. And they already know that it's gonna be that long.
Mhm.
Could it go longer?
No, I think they're like they have a scheduled like end period because
Okay.
they're going to be reviewing like tons of different cases during that time period.
Gotcha.
Yeah, someone at work when I first started my job was on that like 6-month jury duty. So I guess
Oh, really? Oh,
I knew about it,
know.
that it was a thing.
Okay. Jury duty, election day, all those good democratic things. Reading.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's it. I think we'll call it a night. And yeah, just well, raise your hand if you plan on reading The Road. Yeah, 2 hands.
I already have it. I read like 4%, it says in my.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna wait to read until towards the end of the month so
Might be
that,
a better idea.
yeah, so that I have it fresh in my head. I think that's the better route. I just feel like if I don't read it, then it's never gonna get read, and then I'm gonna freak out. But I think this one's gonna be kind of maybe not an easy read, but I think I'll be able to get through it quick.
Is your mom going to be reading the next book and
I
joining
don't
us?
know.
I miss
Don't
her
know.
disappearing on the screen.
She I know. She's like, my back
I'm not
hurts.
disagreeing, but
I think she's still reading the Joy Luck Club, actually. No, she's a little bit behind. But she loves it. She every single time I talk to her, she's like, oh my God, it's so good. I'm like,
it took me a while to finish. I just finished last week.
yeah. Okay.
So I actually want to buy it though, so I can have it because it was a library. So I really liked it a lot.
Good. I did too. And it's it was just one of those books that's it's just very important read. And I'm glad we all got to read it.
Yeah.
Can't say the same about maybe some of the other books that I choose, but overall I like this one. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was
It was fun.
definitely a good book for October. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. That being said, let's call it a night. I am going to press stop on record. Yes, I do want to stop recording.